Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Joe Wilson.
BQ.
Another financial advisor from Ohio.
Are we allowed to be in the same
I don't know.
room? I mean, my God, rival football teams, and here we sit.
I know.
Friends.
I know.
Amigos.
And I thank you so much for coming and doing this with me because, you know, you've been practicing financial planning about as long as I have, probably the last 25 years, close to it or so.
We're getting old.
Yeah, we are getting old. Although you're sending your kids to college.
Yes, I am.
And I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old.
I think that means I win.
You win.
I win.
I don't know who did it right. But, you know, I want to know, how are you guys dealing with inflation? Because, you know, the biggest problem we're dealing with right now is that, you know, it's the worst start to the stock market in, 70 years,
it's
I believe.
brutal, yeah.
Worst start to the bond market in the last
Since
30
81.
years. Since 81.
Yeah.
You know how old I was in 81? Very young.
We were young.
Very, very young. So, I mean, I know we're seeing it in our office, right?
Yeah.
Where people are coming in and they're saying, look, it's costing me more to live.
Sure.
I need more income.
Sure.
What are you guys doing to address it right now?
I think right now, and we talked a little bit about this at lunch, I think it's so important, and what I love about what you do and with your clients, and we try to do the same, is we want a detailed written income plan.
Yep.
Because even though we're talking about inflation, I think it's been this silent tax that's just been attacking these portfolios, especially those folks that have just crossed over into retirement.
Yeah.
But what we want to look at is inflation's hitting everyone differently. Right?
Yep.
Just because some client likes to do travel and maybe stay at hotels and go over to Europe, that's a different inflation rate than maybe someone that just likes to hang out and go hiking in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so even though the average inflation rate is one of the highest we've ever seen in 40 years,
9%
9+%,
right.
It's affecting the modern retiree differently, and it all comes back to personal, comprehensive, individual written income planning.
I love that you shared that because I don't think people realize it. I mean, if you're a retiree that is in your go-go years, right? Go, and you're traveling the world and traveling the country, compared to the person that might just be staying home taking care of their grandkids and tending to their garden.
Yeah, it's a different rate.
The cost of their living or the cost of their inflation is much, much different. Because travel's up 40%, gas is up 100%, right? And it's costing more to do those things.
Had a good friend that just flew to Italy, took his whole family to Italy.
Yeah.
And when he came back, said, how was it over there? And he's like, the cost to fly was the most expensive tickets they had ever purchased, ever. And they travel annually. And he goes, he got over there and the dollar has gotten so strong, there are some benefits, but they've raised all the prices on the hotels to combat that. So, you know, for a traveler and many retirees I know in Cincinnati, and I know how they are here in Pittsburgh, you know, we have some ugly winners. We want to get out of here. And that modern retiree is definitely probably facing an inflation rate more than just 9%. And I'm not sure everyone watching the show has planned that into their individual plan.
No, because most people focus on the wrong number. They focus on their account balance number, not their future purchasing power.
That's right.
Right? Because, and one of the things that, you know, I know you do differently at your practice as I do is that we focus in a different area of financial planning than most firms do. Most firms focus on that first phase of retirement where they're just accumulating somebody's money. But there's a phase that you shift to in retirement where you're starting to distribute that money to yourself. And, you know, we're one of the only financial or professional services that don't have specialties. Everybody thinks financial planners are the same. I mean, if you hurt your knee, you would go to a knee doctor.
Right.
If you had an issue with your heart, you'd go to a heart doctor.
Cardiologist.
And with financial planning, it has not yet been understood that there are people that specialize in different areas of financial
planning and retirement income.
Yeah, and you and I both believe in the importance of having a written retirement plan, a true income plan. And this is where we can make all the bad things happen on paper.
That's right.
You know, so
we test it.
We test it. And I think that's important because the biggest fear of most people in retirement, and I don't know if you experience this, but people will come in and they'll say, look, we're at a point in our life where we can't afford to take another big market loss.
That's right.
We can't afford to you know, not have our income coming in on a monthly basis because we need that income to live off of.
To keep the standard of living and stay in the retirement that we've dreamed of.
Right, and you know, at least in Pittsburgh, I bet you 85–90% of the people, Joe, that come through the office are not retiring with a pension. So, you know, they're utilizing their 401ks, their IRAs as a source of income.
Years and years of work to save that money.
And I think what's really frustrating about it is that no one's ever really taught them how to start utilizing these accounts as a stream of income. And the problem is that when you pull money out of these accounts, you actually have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
So if you've got 9.1% inflation and then you have to pay taxes on that money, you can see how that's starting to compress your purchasing power very, very, very quickly.
That's right.
So, if someone's watching, I mean, what best practices do you guys follow in order to help someone give peace of mind in retirement so that they don't run the risk of running out of money?
I got to tell you this story. We had someone that called in off of our show
Yeah.
not too long ago, and they came in with their retirement savings. They had done a great job of saving. There's quite a bit of money. Her concern was, do I have enough to enter retirement?
Yeah.
And she had amassed a good amount of money for her spending. It was well within reach. Here's the challenge, and I know you're going to know what I'm talking about. We call it if planning. And she started the conversation like this. She was like, Brian, Joe, if I earn 6%,
Yeah.
and if inflation is at 2%,
Right.
and if I can just keep taking only 4% out, this Monte Carlo system thing here says I'm good. One, I'm like, well, that's if planning, and Monte Carlo sounds like a really bad casino in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And so it's if planning. The challenge is we're seeing one of the worst starts to the market, and it doesn't have to just go down and come right back up. And I
Right.
think so many folks have been lulled to sleep about this amazing run-up we've had in the market.
Great point.
But bad markets can hang on around a while.
Yeah.
2000, 2001, 2002, that was a 42% decline in the market. So if you're entering retirement, you're going to take money out, and you start in those types of years, you can't keep an if 4% withdrawal rate. And
right.
we already know inflation's not at 2. So right then and there, I looked at it and I said, I don't know how to tell you other than 3 of the things that you said have to happen aren't happening this year.
Yeah, and that becomes a problem.
And that's the challenge with doing a financial plan once. It is an ongoing, comprehensive plan. And I know that's what you all do.
Yeah, and this is why reviews are so important, because the game does change from year to year as variables change.
Because the market changes.
Market changes, tax rates change, inflation rates change. And so things need to change along the way. Folks, I will tell you, if you're at a point in your life where you're concerned about potentially running out of money, or you don't want to run the risk of not being able to do the things that you promised yourself you were going to do in retirement, I want you to call the number on the screen, 1-888-382-1298, and I want you to get scheduled for your complimentary retirement readiness review. And I want to give you an inflation report with that, something that's going to help you understand where you are right now and where you need to go. Again, call the number on the screen. It's 1-888-382-1298, and tell our folks that answer the phone that you want to schedule your complimentary retirement readiness review today, and also get your inflation report with it. Again, 1-888-382-1298, or you can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Thanks for watching.
Call 888-382-1298 for your retirement readiness review with Inflation Report. Inflation continues to hit all-time highs. Will your investments provide you with income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings? Don't let runaway inflation erode your retirement dreams. Now's the time to act to be certain you have an income strategy that overcomes the effects of inflation. Call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with Inflation Report. You might have the savings you need today to weather this storm, but how will inflation affect your nest eggs 5, 10, 15 years from now? Discover the peace of mind you deserve. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with Inflation Report, or use the QR code to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and in studio with me today is my good friend, Joe Wilson. Joe, how are you?
I'm wonderful, buddy. Good to see you.
Should I tell everybody you're from Ohio?
The Nasty Natty.
No.
A Houday fan.
Right.
My God, and we're on the same set.
That's risky.
That is risky.
And I think that's what we're talking about today is risk, and how much risk can really impact somebody's retirement, and how much is not being taken into account.
Right.
And I don't think people really understand how to define risk. I know for me, I define risk, it's very simple. If it can go up in value or it can go down in value, it's risky.
Correct.
Period, bottom line.
I love that.
So many people are taught that there's this measurement of risk by calling it a conservative portfolio, or moderately conservative, or moderately aggressive. What's your thoughts and opinions on risk?
Well, here's the challenge. I think risk can be defined. Wall Street, let's just start there, has done a terrible job of defining risk. I think anytime there's just generic questionnaire and conservative, moderate, well, what does that mean?
Right.
It's like saying, how spicy do you want your enchilada? I mean, it's a variable.
Yeah.
There needs to be a quantitative reasoning behind that. And I know that's what I love about what you all do, and you shared with us, and we adopt that in our practice. In the ability to really quantify someone's willingness to what are they willing to lose. If they have $1 million. Is losing $200,000 risky to them?
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a frightening scenario.
Absolutely.
And so I think, Wall Street has just gotten this all wrong because they've just lulled people to sleep that I'm a moderate investor, but they've never showed them what a moderate investor could lose in markets like this.
I think the other risky thing is the way that Wall Street looks at math.
Okay.
I mean, you and I look at math completely different. I mean,
yes.
And you know, we've talked about this example many times, but Wall Street's legally allowed to say something like this. So let's say we have somebody that has $100,000 and they lose 50% of that money. So now they go to $50,000, okay? The next year they earn 50%.
Okay.
Well, minus 50 plus 50, that's an average return of zero. Zero. So you would think that with a 0% rate of return, a 2-year average of zero, you would still have $100,000. The reality is, when you return 50% on $50,000, you're only going back to $75,000. So that's still a 25%
That's a major loss of cabbage.
So that's the difference between real rate of return
versus average.
Versus averages.
And
why is nobody talking about
Well, because
that?
Wall Street loves to pump this whole average rate of return thing. I mean, you get these Morningstar reports and average. My Lord, just the modern retiree and their options that they can select in a 401k.
Yeah.
Most folks, as you know, they'll look at the sheet and go, that's average this, that's average, I'm just going to put it there.
Yes.
It is completely oblivious to really what risk is. And how it can affect the modern retiree in these down markets. I got to tell you a story. We had someone that called in not too long ago and came in. They had amassed about $2.8 million, a great sum of money.
Right.
Here's the issue, Brian. 82 years old. Had amazing run up in the market. And came to us right after the first quarter of this year going, something's messed up. They were down over $700,000 in 3 months.
Wow.
At 81.
Yeah.
We did the risk analysis that I know you're going to talk about here. And we were able to look and see that they had 85% of their portfolio in growth mutual funds.
Wow.
At 82 years old.
That's incredible.
That is risk.
Right.
And they looked at us and said, we thought we were conservatively moderate.
Yeah. Isn't that risk evaluation that we do so powerful? Because
it is.
I know you and I were taught, 20 plus years ago at the big box firms, we were both taught about the whole, moderately conservative, moderately aggressive, that whole strategy. And none of it really made any sense.
Right.
But today, because of technology, we're actually able to quantify risk in the form of a number.
And I don't think people realize that.
No, and now you can look at it and you can say, look, how much are you willing to lose? Because when you quantify risk in a number, you can actually determine maybe what your probability of drawdown is going to be. So a lot of times when we look at people's portfolios and they say that they're relatively conservative and we run a risk score on them, and again, that's on a scale from 1 to 99, right? 99 being the highest.
Sure.
People will say, look, we're not risky at all, and we'll find out they have a risk score of 80,
Isn't that amazing?
right? Which is very, very risky.
Very risky.
Now, we also do a quiz with them, and their quiz will come back and it'll say their risk score should really be a 25 or a 30, but their portfolio's invested at an 80. That's eye-opening to people.
It is.
Because
and I think that was allowed to skate through because everything went up over this last decade because the Fed was easy. It was low interest rates, pumping the economy with all this free money. And now it's time to have that root canal and that drilling. And it is shocking some folks when they're opening those statements for the first time, looking at some of these quarterly statements and going, oh my Lord, how much are we losing and why?
And the difference is protecting your retirement lifestyle. So I've always said if you protect your retirement lifestyle, risk is okay.
That's right.
Right? Because if you're going to take risk, there's nothing wrong with risk.
That's
the question is, can you afford to take the risk? And most people, and we see this all the time, people are rolling the dice with 100% of their life savings.
They manage it all the same way.
And we know from being in the financial industry as long as we have, your number one most important thing that you need when you're taking risk is time.
You got to have time on your
So
side.
think about all the people that we meet that are with these big box firms that are not being advised the right way, that are actually pulling money out of their portfolios while they're going down in value.
That's right.
So not only is the market taking their money away, but they're compounding those losses by pulling income out.
Because they have to live.
Because they have to live. They're not going to stop. But now their probability of running out of money drastically goes up.
And that's because they've managed it the old big box way off
Yeah.
of a number of a statement and just assuming, if we get this and if you do that and if,
Yep.
and it just doesn't work in the real world.
I know you guys focus at your practice a lot on protecting that retirement lifestyle.
You have
and,
to.
And I believe that if you can carve off enough money to protect at least the first 15 to 20 years of retirement, that buys you enough time
That's right.
on any money that you have in the market.
That's right.
What's your ratio there? Do you guys like to carve off at least 15 to 20 years, at least 10 years? How much do you try to carve off typically?
We like to look at it and feel that we look at what are your necessities?
Yep.
What are your necessities? And they're going to change as
So
you get older.
basic expenses?
Yeah, to stay retired. You're
Right.
going to have your go-go years, and then you're kind of slow-go, then the no-go years.
Yeah,
so
right.
there's some necessities that you have to cover. But I think you don't retire just to live inside of a hermit. You got to have some lifestyle. And as long as you have breath in your body, BQ, when
Yep.
you retire, you have to have your necessities covered. And that's the number that you have to look at.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to position these assets.
Isn't that the truth? Folks, I can't tell you how important it is to protect your retirement lifestyle before you even consider taking risk. I've said on a number of occasions, if you've won the game, there's absolutely no reason to continue to play it.
Boy, that's true.
The only reason you should ever be able to continue to take risks is because you've protected your lifestyle first. So if you're in a position right now where you don't know how much risk you're taking, you don't know how much potential money you could lose, if the market continued to go down, would you have to delay retirement, potentially come out of retirement? Don't put yourself in that position. Come in and get a risk analysis from us today. I want you to call the number on the screen. It's 1-888-382-1298. And when our team answers, I want you to tell them that you want to schedule a complimentary retirement readiness review and tell them that you want the risk report along with it so that we can help you quantify the amount of risk that you're taking. Again, call the number 1-888-382-1298 or scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen.
Call 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles per hour if 40 miles per hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment election since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Do you know exactly how much risk you are taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and in studio with me today is my good friend, Joe Wilson.
BQ, thanks
from
for having
Cincinnati,
me here.
Ohio.
I can't believe you just said that word on Pittsburgh airwaves.
Someday we're going to do a show during
We
football
should.
season.
We have to.
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
We have to.
It would be a lot of fun. You know, we're talking about the greatest trick ever played.
Ever played.
Not the greatest play, but the
Trick
greatest
play.
trick.
Yeah, trick. Boy,
Now,
that's a doozy.
when we first talked about this topic, you would think like, what is the greatest trick ever played? Would it be like a hat trick by Wayne Gretzky?
Yeah, it could be.
You know, it could be. But tell us, what is the greatest trick ever played on all of us when it comes to retirement
Yeah,
planning?
I think you have to go back in history, and I
Yeah.
love history. When you go back and look at what retirement used to be,
Yeah.
right? You know, mom and dad would go work somewhere, and they'd
Yeah.
work, and they would be there for 30 plus years, and then
Right.
there was a big retirement party, and they get the watch, and they get the party, and
Yeah.
maybe a little vacation trip, and then they got this glorious pension,
Oh,
this
yeah.
mailbox money that came from that company for as long as they lived.
Right.
Right around that 1980s, you started seeing a big shift,
Mm-hmm.
right, away from that into this 401k market. And here's the trick. The government was brilliant because what we know is if you put money in the market and allow time and compound interest to work in your favor,
Yep.
it is the eighth wonder of the world.
Right.
And what the government did is said, BQ, why don't you just take this little bit of money? We're going to give you a tax break on this seed. You'll put money in a 401k and an IRA. We're going to give you a tax break on it. We're just going to let it grow 20, 30 years. And when you go to retire way down there and it's time to harvest it, you can pay us tax then. So you got a break on the seed, but when it's time to harvest the corn, honk, honk, it's tax time.
It's tax time.
And what we've seen is a buildup in these qualified plans. And so the government, man, they're like a fat kid sitting just waiting on the deli to open because they're going to go in with sandwiches, two hands, because they haven't been taxed on that money.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity for the government to help pay off some of this debt. My God, we got to talk about the debt.
I look at it as almost like, I mean, think about having a shareholder. You know, think about any business owner. You have a partner, right?
Right.
And that partner doesn't show up for work.
Yeah.
They have, no skin in the game at all. They don't give you any advice on how to operate the business or anything. However, they get a share of your business.
Yeah.
Now, take it one step further. They can change the rules on you.
Oh, yes.
In the middle of the game.
Yes.
So they can decide one day when you wake up, they can say, you know what, we were thinking about only taking 30% from you, but now we're going to take 40% from you.
Whatever they want.
And I always look at it like this. Let's say that you only contributed ever in your lifetime $15,000 into an IRA or a 401k or a 403b, right? Any type of tax deferred retirement account. Let's say you never made another contribution again.
Okay.
So that meant you got a tax deduction on that $15,000 you put in. However, let's say that we get some really good returns and that $15,000 grows to $1 million.
Okay.
You're telling me that when I want to pull out that $1 million, I'm going to be taxed on all $1 million, and they are a shareholder in all $1 million.
It's not all your money, BQ.
My 3-year-old would know that that is not a fair game.
It's a losing game.
So why is it that, when I meet people and I say, tell me a little bit about, your current plan and what you're doing and the strategies that you have in place. And I'd say, tell me a little bit about your income plan, your tax strategy, your investment strategy, your healthcare strategy, your legacy strategy. Tell me a little bit about what tax planning is going on right now. Are you moving any money from taxable accounts to tax-free accounts? And they say, we're not having those discussions. Most of the discussions people have is about how the investments performed last year.
Right.
Why is it that you think, and I've got my opinions, but what's your opinion on why people are not getting advice about these types of things to make their planning better?
Right. Well, one, usually some of these big box firms don't have the tools or the
don't have the
ability
tools
to give the advice on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yep.
And what separates us as fiduciaries, I know with your practice, it's if you're a fiduciary.
Right.
And you guys do comprehensive wealth planning.
Right.
And so there's just a fundamental difference right there because they've been focused on growing the assets.
Right.
And if there is a Roth conversion, we're going to talk about that in a bit, that money has to come out and move out of that account to another account, and you have to pay the tax on the year that you do that.
Right.
Now, we'll talk about why you might want to do that. But when that money comes out, that manager now is managing less money and almost ensuring a pay cut.
Wow.
So there's a lot of theories out there of what's going on. But a lot of times, it's just that, number one, they're bound by really not having all the tools in the toolbox to help those modern retirees get to this conversation.
The business model is limited. I mean, that's why I left the big box firms. I know you did too.
Why I left.
Because they're really limiting us on what we can do and the type of planning we could do. I never wanted, look, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. My mom and dad worked really hard for their money. My dad had a Montgomery Ward's catalog store. You remember Montgomery Ward's?
Oh, God, yeah, I do.
My grandfather
I'd go
had
through that at Christmas time, every page.
Yeah.
Because they always stick together.
Right, you
lick
would.
and turn it.
That was the Amazon before Amazon,
Oh,
wasn't
absolutely.
it?
Spent hours watching a baseball game doing that. My beloved Dreads probably losing to the Pirates.
Yeah, but these are the things that ultimately, my grandfather had a Kirby vacuum cleaner store. Remember Kirby Vacuum?
Oh, I do, yeah.
So my parents taught me to work really hard. And at the end of the day, what they taught me was work hard, save your money, so that eventually someday your money can start to work for you.
Work back for you.
And when I was at the big box firms, what I realized was nobody was teaching anybody how to use their money. They were teaching them how to invest their money and roll the dice with it.
That's right.
And as long as everything was going up, they were heroes, right?
That's right.
But when things started to go south, the only answer they had was, don't worry about it, hang in there, you're in it for the long haul. Yeah. Or my favorite line was, it's just a paper loss.
It's just a paper loss.
Now, I don't know about you, but I invest personally in the market. I know you do too.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, when I lose money in the market, I don't feel like it's a paper
fun.
loss.
No.
Now, the difference is I've got time before I'm going to need that money.
We're still spring chickens.
A lot of people that are watching this show today they don't have the
don't.
time to recover.
They don't.
Another big market loss would be absolutely devastating to them.
Correct.
So I know we've talked about this a lot about protecting the retirement lifestyle, right? But are there alternative strategies out there,
There are.
where people can protect money, still get decent returns?
Yeah.
And do you guys choose to use that type of stuff
Absolutely.
in your
You
practice?
have to use, in this market, in this world, you have to use alternative asset classes and
Yeah.
sophisticated option strategies.
Right.
Because that's what's going to propel the modern retiree to cover those necessities
Yeah.
and position themselves in a place where they can live that retirement of their dreams. I don't know how else to do that when you look at the stock market down, the massive that it is since the Great Depression, and then look right on top of that, the worst bond market in 41 years. You have to use
And those
strategies.
alternatives you're talking about is a real hedging of risk versus a lot of people are trying to hedge risk by having bonds in their portfolio. But when you have a positive correlation between stocks and bonds, and you got both of them going down at the same time, you've got no hedging against risk
You have no
whatsoever.
hedge. None at all.
And people need to realize that there's just better ways to approach that.
Absolutely.
Folks, if you're in a position right now where you're concerned about how much risk you're taking or how much money you could potentially lose, or not being able to live the lifestyle that you promised yourself that you were going to live in retirement, or if you think that you're at a place right now where an income plan would make a difference in your life. And I will tell you, if you're 5 years from retirement or retired, an income plan is absolutely necessary. I want you to call the number on the screen and schedule your appointment today. It's 1-888-382-1298. Our team is waiting by. Tell them you want the retirement readiness review and the tax map. Tell them you want the tax map, or scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can schedule. Thanks for joining us.
Call 888-382-1298 now to receive your complimentary tax map with your retirement readiness review. Learn multiple strategies that can protect you from higher taxes now and in the future. Taxes are a threat to your financial stability in retirement. Protect yourself from the potential threat of rising taxes. As a retirement planning financial advisory firm, Brian and his team will help you navigate the financial waters to pursue your retirement goals. Call 888-382-1298 today. Brian and his team provide inclusive retirement services such as investment directives for your portfolio, income producing strategies, and wealth preservation plans for your family and legacy. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 now for your complimentary tax map with your retirement readiness review. Discover tax strategies to keep more of what you have saved in retirement, or use the QR code below to schedule today.